Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Frame Live. My name's Dottie San Martin, and today, as you saw in the description of our show, we have a brand new co-host that's joined our team. This gentleman has been around in bowling for many, many years. He owned his own bowling center for over 10 years and was the recipient of many Golden Pin awards from BPAA. He's also been a coach. He has been in the computer business. He was with USBC for about 3.5 years. He's also a certified digital marketer and my colleague. So I would like to welcome as your co-host today, Chuck Lande. Chuck, welcome to our show.
Hey, welcome, Dottie. How are you? Glad to be here.
am really, I am good today. And Chuck, we're so happy to have you. Viewers, as I said, Chuck has joined our team here at Cubica AMF. He is a marketing specialist with the Strategic Services Department and Marketing Services Division. And he is also going to be a co-host on Beyond the Frame. So you'll be seeing his face around on the shows from time to time. So, you know, Chuck, today we have a show that really, it's a subject that we really don't like to talk about too much. But in light of the recent situation in Uvalde, Texas, which was actually 1 week ago at this very time, those children were going through such a horrific experience. And so we want to have a conversation today about preparedness and being prepared and having those conversations about topics that really make you not feel really good inside. But we've found that there's a number of things that you can do to really prepare yourself in the case of something unforeseen happening at your bowling center. And so that's the territory that we are going to cover today, is talking about those things. And Chuck, I know you have been in a center and in this industry for a long time, and I'm sure at your center you had occasions where things came up that were completely unexpected. And let's just talk about some of those things and what those things are and how we can prepare ourselves and our staff for those events. So tell me about some of the things that happened in your center that you had to be prepared for.
Okay. And so first I would say, you know, our center was located in a low crime suburban area of Dallas. And so you would think, like many proprietors, hey, this cannot happen to me. You know,
exactly.
And I think we're learning just as citizens that you never know what could happen, where it could happen, when it could happen. And so, you know, to think that we would even be talking about it, that it may not make sense. Actually, it does, because, you know, things just happen. You know, at our center, even though we were in a low crime area, you know, we've had things where child custody disputes came in during a birthday party. You know, how do you handle that? You know, certainly with an FEC, you deal with maybe missing. You know, my child was in your arcade. I can't find them. You know, can you guys help me? You know, and just things like that may not be life threatening, but certainly that you have to be prepared to deal with at your center. You know, and while you can't write down everything, you certainly have to try to be prepared for whatever comes at you.
Right. And you know, part of that preparedness, Chuck, is to actually have these conversations, talk to your employees, you know, have these drills. And the main thing in a situation, a crisis situation like that, is for you to remain calm and for you to have a plan in place. And, you know, not that it is going to always drastically change the outcome, but it could certainly lessen the anxiety of the situation at the moment, especially when you do have children involved. And that remaining calm comes from practice. It comes from having a plan in place. It comes from knowing that you are going to be doing everything that you can to protect your customers and your employees from whatever the situation is at hand. And, you know, I know the Uvalde tragedy is definitely top of mind. You and I are both here in Texas. And so it is for me, I'm 80 miles from the school that this happened at. So this is huge. It's very, very heavy on my heart. But the reality of this is that unfortunately, we are seeing that things like this can pop up in places that we once thought of as being safe. An elementary school, a church, a supermarket. You shouldn't have to wonder where it's going to happen next, but being prepared will certainly help. You know, local authorities also can help with that preparedness. So, you know, I don't know about you, but San Antonio has a lot of resources available to help businesses with being prepared. You know, can they come in and talk to your staff? Do you have, you know, certain situations that you've identified in your center with your staff that if this happens, here's our plan. If this happens, this is where you should go. You know, do you have code words, you know, little things like that, that your local authorities can certainly help you with. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I had a gentleman have a heart attack on the lanes one day. And, you know, it was in the middle of one of the senior citizen leagues. And of course, immediately everybody starts to panic. But if you know that you are going to do this, you're going to go up to that person, you're going to assess the situation, you're going to make sure that 911 is on their way, you're going to have everybody remain calm. This gentleman survived. Thank goodness he survived. Do you have someone on staff that knows CPR? You know, that's something that we don't always think about. But, you know, those are definitely things that we can do to start to contribute to being prepared. And Chuck, were there any other situations that you can think of that being prepared was really crucial for you?
You know, I think it's, again, hard to pinpoint specifically, you know, a specific instance. You know, obviously with restaurants and bars, you know, you have people that are choking, which, you know, is not just our industry, you know, can happen anywhere. And I think kind of tangent a little bit, you mentioned about like resources, right? And for us, you know, our insurance company was a great source, because anything you can do to prevent liability, number one, is going to help.
You're right.
You know, reduce claims. So they often have very good guides on best practices, and that really, sometimes it's not so much what to do, sometimes it's what not to do. You know, when you talk about someone who, you know, are you going to give aid when you're not qualified, and that stuff can end up dragging you into court and, you know, and costing your insurance company a lot of money. The second thing is, you know, we were always really close to our local police and fire department. And so first responders, you know, it's another great resource in the community. A, you should just build those relationships anyway. But B, if you want to talk about any type of prevention and preparedness, it's great resources. You know, they would love to have, you know, business owners in the community that are proactive to kind of, you know, spearhead some training, because, you know, let's face it, you know, they have a tough job as well. And so, you know, for us, any policies we built were typically from suggestions or guidelines provided by insurance companies, or again, being the first responders. And I think the big thing was just stressing, you don't have to be an expert to tell your people to just remain calm, you know, and that part of the ability to be calm is just to be prepared, like we've been talking about here.
Yes, you're so right. And, you know, when you do reach out to the community and you start to leverage the first responders and such for their knowledge and their support, that really sends out a great message also to your community. You are there in partnership with these people and you want to support them. And when the community sees that, that goes a long way. You know, even I know in the very beginning with this latest tragedy, they were reaching out, asking for people to do blood drives at their businesses and stuff, and to even, you know, contribute and do things like that in preparation for disasters. And when they do happen, it also goes a long way with your customers to show the customers that you are dedicated to the community, that you want to, you know, partner with these people to support the community. And that has just such a powerful message when you can do things like that. So, and running a business, there's a lot of things that we have to be prepared for. And, we have to be prepared. Certain situations like this tragedy are ones that we never dreamed would happen in our facility. And we would love to see these tragedies come to a screeching halt, period. But let's be realistic. Unfortunately, they're happening more and more often. But there's other sort of situations that I think that, talking about them, if your center has a weekly staff meeting, then maybe every few weeks have a certain scenario and even role play it out. Mm-hmm. So this becomes second nature to your employees and getting them to feel comfortable with it. But, like I said, choking, or maybe someone gets in a fight with another customer and it gets out of hand, and, you have to calm that situation down. Or one time we had a situation where our center became the pathway for a police foot chase. And so the suspect went through the center, and right behind him was the police with the weapons pulled. Okay, who in a million years, I would have never planned for that, but more so we use that as a learning opportunity afterwards to let the staff know that in a case of something like that, you do what you're being asked to do. You don't want to jeopardize your life. Same thing, if you have someone come up and they're trying to rob you, certainly don't try to be the hero in this situation. Money can be replaced, your life cannot. And so it's little things like that. If we can work with our employees and help them to feel comfortable in different scenarios that come. Again, I don't like to think of these situations, nor does anybody that I know of like to think of these situations. But unfortunately, it is a reality today. And I would much rather think of these situations and have those conversations with the employees now than in a crisis situation.
That makes sense. And two, one thing that you didn't mention really was, certainly we agree it could happen. Something could happen any place, anytime, anywhere. It doesn't matter nowadays. That's just the world we live in. And hopefully our role is to keep our staff safe, to keep the customers safe. But there's another part we haven't touched upon yet, and that's really, you can actually do everything right and be prepared, but you're going to be all over the news or in the paper. And we haven't talked much about the financial impact that a business has that in one sense is kind of beyond your control. So I think another part of training goes into, if something, God forbid, happens in your facility, is your management team, do they have a policy of how to speak to the media, or maybe not speak to the media? Is there something with your staff that maybe witnessed something about how to prepare them to deal with those questions, or to not deal with those questions as they come up? But you also touched on something about preparedness, and it reminds me, I've been on, cruising is my thing for vacation. That's what my family likes to do, right? Boats aren't going to sink. I feel 100% confident getting on a cruise ship and sailing across the world. But every single cruise, there's it's what they call with life vests. Everybody goes to their designated evacuation stations. The crew leads the drill as if it's real. And so that's, one way you hope it never happens. I would imagine if something does, panic is going to probably ensue with the guests, because that's natural, but the staff is trained to be able to remain calm and guide people to do what they need to do. In a similar story, my daughter worked as a lifeguard at a water park, as a teenager. And one of the trainings was they had a life-size baby that they would randomly walk around the park and throw it into one of the pools.
Oh, wow.
To simulate a drowning baby, and then see how the lifeguards would be always trained to be alert, for that thing. And so again, preparation is key, but again, I think the training aspect is as well as a key part of that.
Absolutely. And to like I said, to diffuse the anxiety and the panic that naturally, when a tragedy is in the works, that's natural for people to panic. But when they see that calm demeanor of the person that's trying to help them, that's so helpful in diffusing the situation. It's not always going to change the outcome, but it will make it a little bit easier on those people that are going through such a traumatic situation. And Chuck, as I said at the beginning, it's been 1 week ago today that Uvalde, the city of Uvalde, just got turned upside down. And I can only imagine that the teachers and how the training that they had came in so helpful to these kids to help them remain calm. And you hear these stories of some of these kids and what they did and how they survived. And it's amazing that they were comfortable. And I contribute part of that to the drills that they had, these active shooter drills. And so, it helped these surviving kids through that situation. Still the traumatic, and it is going to leave a huge, spot in their lives. But just knowing that, that the training that these teachers received and that the school provided did go into play is remarkable. I do want to mention that we have a fund that we started, Bowlers Unite for Uvalde. If anybody is interested, it is on our Beyond the Frame Facebook page. You're more than, we would love to have you contribute if you are so compelled. The money, GoFundMe is actually working with us to have it transferred directly into the account that's been set up for these victims, to be transferred straight to that account. So we would love for you to participate. We would love for you to reach out to your bowlers, maybe do split the pots or reach out to them. I mean, it's these children, these lives that have been lost are lives of just like our customers. These are children that we see in our centers. And I would love for us to get together and show that bowlers do stand behind this. So anyway, Chuck, it's so good to have you not only as a co-host here on Beyond the Frame, but just to have you on our team here at Cubica AMF. You are such an asset to us, and we look forward to the future and what it holds for us. We have some really exciting things company-wide, team-wise. It's just a really exciting time for us here, and we're happy to have you here, and so happy to be for you to be part of our team. Any closing remarks, Chuck, before we talk a little bit about what's next for Beyond the Frame?
No, I think we covered that topic pretty good. I would say I'm very happy to be part of the team. I was a longtime Cubica customer. I think the software is great. It's a brand leader in the industry, and so that was a no-brainer for me when the opportunity came up. I love the bowling business. It's a passion of mine, and so just a great fit. And glad to be here, and excited to see what the future holds.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, viewers, we appreciate you tuning in. This is not a subject that I like to have. It's not a topic of conversation that I'm comfortable with, but knowing that we're prepared and we are making plans for something that we hope and pray never happens is okay. Keep watching us. We are nearing the 1 month out from, or we are 1 month out from Bowl Expo. Yeah. We are going to start that journey soon, our road to Bowl Expo. So keep following. Follow a hashtag Bowl Expo with me. And we've got some fun things planned. We have another new co-host for Beyond the Frame that will be introduced very shortly. So keep watching for that. And Bowl Expo is going to be really exciting this year. It's going to be so nice to see everybody and be able to kind of get things back on track. So Beyond the Frame viewers, thank you so much for joining in at this different time. We felt that we wanted to do this show at about the same time that the tragedy here in Texas happened. So we ask that you keep the city of Uvalde in your thoughts and prayers as they struggle to rebuild their community and to rebuild their lives. So until next time, everyone, have a good afternoon and thanks for joining us today.